If you're not using one of those large language models to help you out, you're behind already. This is hard, so let's throw AI at it and that'll solve the problem. And that doesn't necessarily work.
Ready for some mind-blowing tech? Vidoori Tech Talks is where it's at.
Hello and welcome to Vidoori Tech Talks, new series where we go beyond buzzwords and talk honestly about what's happening in tech world. In this episode, we are discussing AI, or what we really mean when we say AI. To discuss this topic, here in the studio, we have Vidoori Chief Technology Officer, Tim Withum. Tim, thanks for being here. Tim, AI is everywhere right now. Job descriptions, meetings, it's a new buzzword, right? But what do you really mean when you say AI? How does it look like in your every day-to-day job?
So for me, AI means a lot of things. My background back in the 90s, when I was a youth, I worked a lot with neural networks and pattern recognition and image processing. So AI's been around a long time, right? So what I see is that AI means a lot of things, right? It means pattern matching and fuzzy matching and robotics and expert systems. So it's a big area. But recently, the focus is really on large language models and some machine learning. So like ChatGPT. So when people say AI now, a lot of the time they mean those specific things. But you're using AI all the time, right? Like when you look at your phone and it recognizes your face to log you in, that's AI, right? Or if something recognizes your fingerprint, that's AI. Even things like spelling correction on using a Word document. That's some AI. So AI's been around a long time and it means a lot of different things. It's just recently it's been large language models and things like that. But as a CTO, I have to keep all of it in mind because all of it is useful depending on a particular situation.
AI is often described as revolutionary, right? But still this is not a magic wand. Where would you say that AI is genuinely solving the problems and where it still falls short?
Yeah, it tends to be for repetitive things, things that you could teach a person to do, but can't quite think of an algorithm in software. That's kind of a sweet spot for it. Now, you also have to be able to teach a person that kind of thing, because if you can't teach the AI, it's not going to learn any better than a person, right? So you have to have the data that says, I want you to know this, I don't want you to know this, right? So those are big components of the AI. It can also, a lot of large language models can supplement a person, right? So if you sort of think about it as a person that never goes to sleep and never complains, you'll get an idea of what it can and can't do.
At Vidoori, in your day-to-day job, how do you decide where AI is needed or is must, and when it's just you just gotta leave it?
Yeah, it's along the lines of what I just said, right? Is that if you see a repetitive task that you could have a person take care of, that you could train a machine to do it, those are the kind of things you'd look for. What I would say is one of the biggest things to watch out for is what it can't do. It's not going to do everything, right? And you know, with everybody's excitement over AI, that's the first thing that'll jump to, right? Is this is hard, so let's throw AI at it and that'll solve the problem. And that doesn't necessarily work. Something similar years ago was cloud, right? People were working on-prem and they might have a performance problem. They're just like, let's put it on the cloud and then we won't have a performance problem anymore. Well, that turned out, everybody learned that that's not quite true. Same type of thing with AI. It's not a panacea. It's not going to solve every problem that you've got. You really got to pick the right type of AI, pick the right type of problem, and make sure you have enough information that you can train that AI to do what you need it to do accurately.
When labeling something AI, does it create more confusion or does it bring confidence? Like, what is your experience?
So I'd say there's two different sides of that in terms of like confidence and trust. I'd say from the trust side, most people probably trust it less, right? Because they don't a lot of times know what it's doing. Personally, I trust it more. And part of that is because if you think about a person, they tend to really remember the most recent things that they were taught, right? AI is going to remember all of it, right? And they also, like I said, they don't go to sleep, and they don't complain a whole lot, right? So they can work all day and all night long on a problem and take into account a large amount of information in order to do that problem. So that's one aspect from the trust standpoint. The confusion part, I think, is really that it's tends to be a black box and it's hard to understand what it does. Like a neural network, the basic neural networks, it's about 10 lines of code. And all it does is multiply numbers over and over and over again, and poof, out comes the answer. Explaining to somebody why that works is really hard, right? So that's where I think some of the confusion could come in. You almost have to judge it by its results more than the algorithm itself. Although that's a big focus nowadays too, is the explainability of a lot of the AI.
In a couple of years, what AI capability do you think will become a standard? And what do you think? Do you think that tech teams are ready for those?
So the large language models and things like ChatGPT, I think, if they're not already there, they'll be a standard. And because at this point, I would say, if you're not, as a developer or somebody writing documents, if you're not using one of those large language models to help you out, you're behind already. But in terms of, I would look at it as now they're kind of new, right? But if you think about it, they're kind of the advanced version of spell checking or grammar checking on a Word document, right? And now it's hard not to use that stuff, right? It's so ingrained in what you do. That's where I think large language models will be in a couple of years, is it'll be ingrained in what you do, and you won't be able to work without it practically, right? So I think that's a big thing that will happen, just solidifying that. And I think after that, and in parallel with that, we'll move into more of the rest of AI and applying it to various places.
And lastly, for the teams who are just starting their AI journey, what would your advice be?
I would say, remember that it's not going to solve every problem you've got, right? It's not that panacea. You can't just say, that's hard, AI it away, right? So that's the big thing. I'd also say, particularly when it comes to training it and testing it, you need to be pretty regimented about having like a training set of data and a test set of data and knowing what you're getting out of it. I've seen a lot of cases where people will have AI and run it and it works, but they don't know how well it works, right? So you really need that information to tell you how well it's working. And that changes your development and test approach. Like with development, a key thing is, when are you finished with it, right? Because like in my day it was character recognition. You're never going to recognize everything 100% of the time. So when are you done, right? Is it 98% of done? 98% of done, right? So you're constantly trying to make it better and better and better, and then you have to look at things and say, enough's enough. So I've spent enough money, right? So that from the development side changes it. From the test side too, same sort of thing, where now you're not necessarily going to always get the same answer out of things, right? So it's harder to have these very step by step, here's what happens in your tests, and you definitely have to focus on the tests and training sets and things like that, so you know how your AI is performing.
Thank you. Thank you for this interesting conversation. Thank you for watching. Like and share our videos and subscribe to our channel. You're going to see a lot of interesting videos here.